When you think about dog training, you probably think about this: structured classes, deliberate practice, and specific goals. And make no mistake, this type of training is absolutely essential for both the techniques you learn and the bond you build through working with your dog. But I've come to believe that thinking about training primarily as explicit instruction can in many ways set you and your dog up for failure, especially when it comes to Rhodesian Ridgebacks. Ridgebacks were bred to be independent thinkers who worked without human input for long stretches of time. Their reputation for being stubborn and headstrong is not maladjusted behavior as much as it is an essential component of their character. The mantra with Ridgebacks is that you need to be a confident leader, but novice Ridgeback owners, myself included, often take that to mean you need to be a strict disciplinarian. A drill sergeant who says jump and expects the dog to ask how high. But I've discovered, the hard way, that mindset is so counterproductive with Ridgebacks. Which is why I want to encourage you to avoid thinking of training as teaching your dog to do what you want. Instead, I recommend reorienting your perspective around the idea of giving your dog a choice. Choice-based training isn't a new idea, but it was certainly new to me. I stumbled upon it accidentally, but now use and recommend it very deliberately. In choice-based training, your Ridgeback is in the driver's seat. They're responsible for making their own decisions without your input. Your job is to provide them with the proper feedback to positively reinforce them making the choice you want them to make. It sounds a lot more confusing than it is, so let me explain. Here's a quick example that occurs naturally. I never trained my dogs to understand the word hungry. They all very quickly figured out what it means on their own. Here's a clip of Puppy Zero beginning to work out the association. So now, when I say the word, both dogs run over and sit in front of their bowls, politely. It's exactly where I want them to be, doing exactly what I want them to do. But I never once asked them to do it. It was their choice. And by giving them a meal, they learn that their choice is a great one. The sooner they sit and wait, the more quickly they're fed. No need for me to instruct. This behavioral shaping holds true across species. All creatures study their environment, learn its rules, and imitate successful strategies. These patterns are everywhere. A while back, I even realized that apparently I sigh in a very particular way before I get up to take the dogs for a walk. This, even unintentionally, is training. And it's the type of training you spend way more time on, whether you know it or not. Understanding this is key to avoiding being the guy trying to control his dogs like this.
No.
Without delving into the fact that my son was imitating me here, let's just agree that you don't want to be this person.
David, that's it. The purple.
Because the only thing you're training your dogs to do is tune you out entirely. So like the Ridgebacks of old who would hunt lions of their own volition, how do you get a modern lion dog to make the choices you want? The key, as always, is to start young. And the surest path to nudge a Ridgeback's mind is always through their stomach. The more you can associate choices with rewards, the more amenable your dogs will be to choose that behavior on their own. And a behavior a dog chooses themselves will always be stronger than a choice imposed by your will. For example, neither of my dogs likes taking baths, but they don't try to bolt because they know they're well compensated for their bravery. Same goes for nail trims, teeth scraping, and all the other troublesome grooming. There's no way to keep a wet Ridgeback in a tub they don't want to be in. They have to make that choice, and you have to reward them for doing so. This is not an easy skill, and it's something I really didn't begin to understand until I matched wills with Penny Mayhem. In a given moment, I could try to command her to listen to me. But beyond that, she was as obstinate as they come. And your dog always has more time and stubbornness than you do. You have places to go and things to do. They have nothing to do but oppose you. I exhausted myself trying to helicopter parent Penny's every move. I failed miserably and often. She forced me to learn that you can't control a dog's choices, but you can control your response to those choices. And that's where true freedom lies for all parties. Like in this game, which I always recommend, where I don't tell my dogs what to do. I simply release the treat when they stop trying to get it and look at me. The choice is in their paws the entire time. What this does is build the understanding that positive things happen when my dogs choose to defer to me. As always, they're free to ignore me or make any choice they want, but by setting up the system to reward one choice and one choice only, I find they're pretty eager to make exactly that choice. This principle applies across so many troublesome training disciplines. People struggling with recall will marvel that if they simply turn and walk, or in this case paddle, away, their Ridgeback will immediately make the choice to come gallivanting after them without any command. By harnessing a Ridgeback's natural inclination to choose for themselves, you can shape and reinforce their decision-making in a form of training that is so much more durable than anything else I've found. Choice-based training lacks commands, but it is so much more commanding. There's no need to ask for a behavior when it's become your dog's default choice. In this clip, you can see that even when distracted, and even though I try and sneak around them, the dogs both immediately bring the wrestling match right back to me. My knees may regret their choice, but the rest of me is glad for it. Working with Ridgebacks, wild and independent nature, is so much more fruitful than trying to work against it. They're not labs or bird dogs or any other eager to please breed, and expecting them or training them in that fashion is a recipe for frustration. Trust me on this one. Free yourself from that expectation, and you're gonna free yourself from so many of the headaches along the way. It'll free your pup from frustration too, and hopefully save you a few shoes and couches along the way. The biggest benefit personally for shifting the way I think about training dogs shows up with how my dogs are around my kids. By rewarding my dogs for doing nothing in response to pokes and prods and loud noises, Penny and Zero now actively choose to ignore and avoid the stimuli. I conditioned the choice by slowly acclimating them to it and heavily rewarding them for it. It's impossible to have eyes on my children and dogs 100% of the time, and I can't rely on chance or commands to keep them safe. Choice-based training provides an additional layer of security and comfort by empowering my dogs to make the default choice I want them to make. And the principle holds true across the board, from loose leash walking, to crate training, to barking at doorbells, to separation anxiety, and just about everywhere else. If you identify the choice you want your Ridgeback to make, set them up with the opportunity to make that choice, and reliably reward them for it, the results are pretty amazing. There's a number of great trainers who have different ways of implementing this choice-based technique, and I recommend you research it in depth. If you need a place to start, Susan Garrett and Karen Pryor are two well-known trainers with lots of great resources on this framework. I strongly believe choice-based training is the single most effective tool for training Ridgebacks in particular, So often our frustrations are really self-sabotage, and choice-based training provides a better way. A confident Ridgeback owner doesn't impose their will on their dog. They share it with them. Lead with this type of confidence, and your Ridgeback will choose to follow. I'm also hoping this works on kids because it's basically my parenting strategy too. So I'll update you guys in about 18 years.